if you look at those first lyrics, try to remember the kind of September when life was slow. Remember that? And oh, so mellow. Try to remember the kind of September when grass was green. When I hear that lyric, I think to myself of Philadelphia, living in a row home in Northeast Philly with this, I thought was this gigantic lawn that we had in front of the house. I felt I was living in Tara, but everybody else was living in this row home. And there was this beautiful little lawn, and when we went back recently to see it, it was kind of brown, and it was literally like the size of these two chairs. That was it. That was the lawn. When grass was green and grain was yellow. Try to remember, and if you remember, then follow. We tend to follow our memories. This month, our theme is remember, but I want to put a very different spin on remembering today, because very often we get caught up in the melancholy of remembering. You know, when we were singing the song today and we got to, without a hurt, the heart is hollow, you know, instantly I went to losing our daughter, that we're standing up here singing and we have lost our daughter. And it was like, without a hurt, the heart is hollow. You know, and deep in December, our hearts will, deep in December, it's good to remember the fire of September that made us mellow. Kevin and I met in September, and there was fire when we met, and there still is. So it was all of that roaming around in my head with the memories, and the important part is to take a look at how do I feel about it. So we can have a lot of memories that bring up melancholy, and where are we going to follow those memories? Where are they going to take us? All of those things that have happened in your life, everything that makes you who you are sitting here today, every aspect of your life brings you to who you are in this moment. And the memories are there, and it's your job to either follow or not follow. So my first slide is this. Discipline is remembering what you want, by David Campbell. So when you're sitting here today, you are literally sitting here amidst a field of dreams and aspirations, ideas, things that you want to accomplish. So if it takes a disciplined mind to remember what it wants, I remember who I am. How? No matter what. That's a disciplined mind that doesn't let the memories, all the things that show up, take us on a ride that we may not want to be taking. It's a disciplined mind, as Ernest Holmes said, trained thought is far more powerful than untrained thought. It's a disciplined mind who can know exactly what I am doing here, no matter what happens. This doesn't take me off of my remembrance. So remembering is really important depending on what you are remembering and how it's applying to your life. So the greatest tool we have is our mind. You know, and our job is to remember that we know how to think. That's a big remembrance. To remember, I am thinking. And the first course we taught of the year, I used this affirmation. I am thinking. What am I thinking? Am I willing to live the result of what I'm thinking? So just say that with me. I am thinking. What am I thinking? Am I willing to live the results? That takes a disciplined mind to go through your life asking yourself those questions. First of all, knowing, I am thinking, I am creating at every single moment, no matter what. The question is, what am I creating? So there are two states of this remembering thing. One is to be remembering the past. And how many of you sometimes during a day get caught up in bringing back to your remembrance something from the past? Pretty much. Would you say never? Funny. We do. They just pop up and it's like, oh, remember that? Oh, remember when I was 20? No one here does. But I do, you know, and what's the difference? So there's that type of remembering the past. Then there's the title of my talk today, which is Remembering the future. A lot of people said to me when I gave this talk title in, they were like, ooh, that's a good one. I'm thinking, you think so? Because I'm not sure what it means yet when I gave the title in. I got it. It was some kind of quantum thing pushing me, go, remember the future. Don't remember the past. Remember the future. So that first quote about discipline, remembering what it is you want and staying true to it. Well, what do we teach in Science of Mind? We teach that what we are equal to in mind already exists in form. It may not be here yet, but it already exists in form. Because we live in this field of pure creativity. And whatever it is we want to create in our lives already exists. We just have to be equal to it. We have to have the mental equivalent in our minds. So we are always remembering the future when we're talking about our desires. But it's not about hoping that the future happens, or I'm going to make this happen maybe. I'm going to see what happens. No, it's remembering the future. It's remembering what you have decided. And as Reed and Patrick just said, when you know who you are, and you know what is yours to do, and you decide what is yours to do, now it's just remembering that. Constantly remembering that, no matter what happens. I think about Sylvester Stallone when he was going around Hollywood trying to sell Rocky, and everybody kept turning him down. By most people's standards, Rocky should have never happened. Because after about the 10th studio telling him it's never going to happen, most people would have left after the second studio said, get a day job. Literally. And then, not only that, he sells the movie finally, a studio says yes, and he says, I only sign it if I star in it, and I've never done a movie before. And so now he had to wait for another studio to decide to give it to him. But he remembered who he was, he remembered what he wanted to do, and he stayed in that memory, and he stayed true to it until someone said, fine, we'll make the movie, and you can play Rocky, and the rest is history. So where's your Rocky? Lisa Carey. Where is yours? Where is that thing that you remember, you're willing to remember? And it is about remembering who you are, but it is about remembering the future. If you would give me that next slide. This is by Richard Bach. Some choices we live not only once, but 1,000 times over, remembering them for the rest of our lives. I think we are somehow trained to spend our lives as we get further and further into our lives reliving the past, remembering the past. Remember this, remember that, remember when we used to do this, as opposed to keeping our minds clear and clean and expansive. Now, that doesn't mean I don't love to remember things. I do. They're wonderful. It's fun to do that. But is that going to be what lives my life for me? My memories, remembering this, remembering that. Because there is a quantum way of using your mind where you get to create your future by remembering who you are in the present. Because let's face it, nothing exists in the future. There is no future. There's just the present. The future that may show up is whatever I have done with my mind in the present. So in fact, every moment I'm using my mind on purpose, I am remembering the future. Does that follow? Are you following that? Every time I use my mind consciously, on purpose, in the present, I am remembering the future. Because whatever I focus on will show up in form at some point. There's a difference between remembering and reliving. You know? Now just think about that for a second. I can remember things that happened in the past, but how many of you, by a show of hands, how many of you think sometimes you get caught up in reliving the past? Stan, that was very funny. Stan's like, well, yeah. Yeah, you see, I can see all your faces, just so you know. So there's a difference between remembering it and reliving it. And here's the thing. When you relive something in the past, what happens? The reliving of something brings the feeling back, brings back the emotions. Well, Ernest Holmes was very clear that your feelings, your emotions create your experiences. So talk about the hamster wheel. Every time we relive something, we bring back the feeling of that, and now we're creating from it all over again. Just because it happened in the past doesn't mean that you don't get to create from it when you're willing to invest your feelings in it. So it's very important for us when we're looking at this concept of remembering the future to really ask ourselves, where am I willing to invest my feelings? Where and what am I willing to put my feelings into? Because every time we go down that memory lane and turn into any kind of, as Ernest Holmes said, maudlin feelings, we are creating all over again. And basically in that moment, you are remembering the future because you're bringing it up again and living it again, which is a great reason to really not let yourself get into the complaining mode. We just finished CPR. Who was in CPR? Wow. None of you. There were 56 people in CPR. They just spent 30 days of no complaining. How'd you do, Karen? I love the silence. You're like, yeah. How'd you do? Who is it over here? Laura. I complained. You complained? Phoebe, how'd you do? I caught myself complaining. Yeah, okay. How'd she do? No, I'm just kidding. So this whole concept of feeling, every time you complain, you're feeling something. There's something you're creating from the complaint. You're not correcting it. You're not making it any better. So, give me the next slide. This is Ernest Holmes. He says this: the creative power responds to feeling more quickly than to any other mental attitude. So when you're using your mind, your memory, when you're remembering things, you're activating feelings that are now then creating something new in your life, whatever that will be. And you may say to yourself, same old, but there's no such thing as same old in quantum mechanics, because it's always new. You just may be creating the same thing over and over and over, new every single time. So the question becomes with this month, what are you willing to remember that catapults you into the life you want to live? What future do you want to remember in order to make sure that that future becomes the present? Many things. There are many things. I had a conversation yesterday. I was so clear about it. I am so clear about what Kevin and I are about to just about to embark on and where I see that going, how it goes, what I want out of it, how I feel about it, and I am remembering the future now, no matter what. Which means I am prepared for anything that comes my way, but mostly I'm prepared for everything to come my way that supports this dream, this desire, this yes in my life. That's remembering the future, no matter what. And if I wanted to, I could go back to the past and drudge up some things that could say, really? Because remember last time? Do you think this is going to go differently? And I'm like, I'm not looking at you. I learned everything I needed to learn there, and thank you, and bye-bye. I am moving on to remembering the future, not the past. Is that all part of my history? It absolutely is. Is all of that what got me here today? It absolutely is. Is all of that going to take me there into the future? Absolutely not. What's going to take me into the future is remembering who I am and making the decision now, as these two did when they went to that island and said, this is what we're doing. So, my question to you this morning is, what are your feelings about your future? Somebody just go, What are your feelings about your future? Because guess what? Whatever your feelings about your future, whatever those feelings are, that's what's creating your future. So what are your feelings about your future? Do you have them? And I'm not talking about what's your 5-year plan, or what's your 10-year plan, or what's your 20-year plan. That gets me to 87. My 30-year plan, where do I want to be at 97? I want to be right here, talking. I want to know who's talking, but I want to be right here talking. So what are you? That just went through my head. I was like, do you want to be here Yes, I do. I always say, I want to be here as long as I can identify my shoes. As long as I am vibrant and alive and healthy and clear thinking, I'm good. If any of that goes, I'm like, okay, move me on. I'm totally fine with that. I can see that future. I'm okay with that. But what do you feel about your future? If you have apprehension about your future, what you are creating is apprehension, not a future. If you are not certain, if you're not sure you're up to the task of the future you see for yourself, then the real truth is you don't know who you are. It is nothing about the future that you think is out there. Because if you know who you are, if you remember who you are, then you get to remember the future any way you choose. And this has nothing to do with it. And that's what principle is not bound by precedence means. That this does not matter. What matters is this. Remembering the future means that you are focused on the life you know you are equal to. So what life are you equal to? What do you feel about your future? What do you two feel about this New Thought Village? Is it just an idea right now? Is it a nice idea and something you're really committed to? Or does it just feel great to know you live there? Yep. Right? Two. Number two. I'll take number two. Right. That has to be the question. Does it seem overwhelming? Does it seem like something big? What we're about to mount on, it could seem big, but I just see us doing it beat by beat by beat, step by step, enjoying our lives, because my motto is, if I can't enjoy it, I shouldn't be doing it. I must enjoy what I'm doing in life, or I have no business doing that in life. I add nothing to the world when I do anything that I don't enjoy doing. And I'm not talking about like cleaning up the dog poop. I'm talking about, stuff, not the things I have to do during the day. No, I mean the big things, the things that I put myself in. There's a great quote: if you can't put your heart in it, take yourself out of it. And I live by that. If I can't put my heart in something, I give it my best, but then I'm like, nope, this isn't for me. But it might be for somebody else. So, give me the next slide, please. Remember who you are. I love that Karen Wright used that through Uganda, telling the women of the villages when she would be leaving, remember who you are. Never forget who you are. Remember who you are. The thought to me that remember who you are could come to me, upload through me, love only, forgive everything, remember who you are years and years ago, and that years later it can be spoken in Uganda. That's the power of creativity, the inspiration. That is what we are all a part of. And when I say remember who you are, I don't just mean every now and then remember who you are. And I also don't mean remember who you were. We all remember who we were. Does anybody have a were that they maybe would not like to talk about? We've all had that. I still have people come up to me that knew my were, that are like, you're a what? I'm like, no, I'm a minister. They went, how did that happen? Because they're still seeing me in my were. But I are something else. So, remember who you are, not who you were, and not who you could be. This is not for you to look at who could I be. There's no such thing as who you could be. You can be this, period. Now, what is that? What are you willing to know here in this moment? It's remember who you are, not were or could be. Remember who you are right now, no matter what. You are two people that have a New Thought Village in Kauai that is filled to overflowing with people that come to that island to be fed. Yes? And that's the truth. We are two people, Mr. Bailey, who have not even begun to scratch the surface of the impact we can have in this world. Right? So, there's this great thing that comes along. I was talking about it recently with Reverend Jonathan Zenz, and we were saying to each other, who do you think will be remembered as? I don't remember if I asked him or if he asked me, but we got into this conversation of, who do you think you'll be remembered as? And then we went through all these fun versions of ourselves, of who we could have been remembered as. But that's a question I want to ask you. Who do you think you'll be remembered as? Take a look at this next quote. You are remembered for the rules you break. Douglas MacArthur. How many people here break rules? Every hand should go up, because here's the thing. The rules of life are changing second by second. You're a rule breaker, Scott. Second by second. Liza is a rule breaker, right? She has not done a thing I've told her to do. Yeah. You guys are rule breakers, right? Yeah. So we all are rule breakers. I am the classic rule breaker. I believe that rules are made to be broken because they need to be grown and expanded. Those who live by rules of yesterday are living in yesterday. It is time for us to make our own rules and then break those when we need to expand.
Didn't CSL call them Mellons?
Yeah, not CSL, that was Religious Science International. After a while, I kept breaking every rule there was and saying, you know what, we're going to do it this way. They stopped calling them variances. They called them Mellons. And I would call and talk to the head of education. I'd go, I have a question. What Mellon do you want this week? He'd be like, well, I really want to teach this, and I want to call it this. You went, okay, have at it. Because RSI was very expansive. CSLs, they wouldn't call it Mellons. They'd just say, no. So I left, and we're breaking the rules, but again. So this is a big one for me, to remember who you are, to remember that you get to set the rules for your life. And frankly, you could let go of a lot of them, because it's time to break the rules. You can be successful at any age, at any gender. You can be happy. You can be in love. You can find your soulmate if you're 100. There's a 94-year-old in Palm Desert who is dying to go on a date with Joe Jordan. Seriously. He finally met you, right? Did he meet you yet? He did meet you. And I said to him, of course, now Joe's about to turn 94 next week. 12. So she's turning 94. He'll be turning 95, so he's a little bit older. But I said to him, and he drives himself to class and shows up in class, and I said to him, so Don, what did you think of Joe? He goes, I think we should go out on a date. And I said, well, there's the distance thing. He goes, I drive. There is nothing that should be rules-driven. Your heart is what needs to be driven. Your heart, remembering who you are. So the real question I have for you today is, who could you see yourself as being? There's all this stuff, to know who you are. But who could you see yourself as being? If you drop all the walls and let go of everything, who could you see yourself as being in life? It may be someone different than you are right now. And that's okay. What's driving you? What's really driving you? So use this phrase throughout this month. This month is all about remembering who you are no matter what. Let your dreams come back into play. The pandemic is over. I get that it's still going on, and I get that we still have to be careful at times, but we need to move out of fear and into action, because our theme this year is action. And I told you I'm going to say it all year, so that by the time we get to the end of the year, everybody goes, what was that theme? Action. When you remember who you are, life has a way of becoming very active. When I know how creative I am, I can't sit around not creating. When I know how excited I am about life, I can't sit around not being adventurous. When I get it, that there is so much life to be lived, I cannot sit around not living. So it's up to you this month. Remembering the future, making a decision, sticking to it no matter what, breaking the rules. Do not let the rules tell you anything. If any rule tells you that you are something less than the infinite expanse of the universe, that rule needs to be broken and gotten rid of so that you move forward in action with the very life you want to live. Remember the future, remember who you are, and let it be so. And so it is. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.